Video games. They are more widely available than the early days of Pong in 1980. But with the many advancements in technology, especially in the graphics area, most people would say that video games are the main cause of violent behavior in our society today, especially in our youth. Although violence has been around for forever, video games have sort of become the scapegoat for news outlets and parents to just put the blame on something other than their lack of proper parenting for the way that their children turn out in life. Plus, what most outlets focus on is on the negatives of video games and how it promotes antisocial behavior, habits, and desensitizes us to violence as a result of exposure to violent content. But in the article, Are Video Games Harmful?, it tells how a surgeon takes part in a training that includes the use of robotic apparatuses in the operating room to give doctors more precision and control when they're performing surgery. The surgeon believes that his students can become better operators of these devices by playing video games. He says that the inspiration of this idea came to him after observing his son's use of a simulator for robotic surgery. Quote, "I saw my son, an avid video game player, take the reins of a robotic surgery simulator at a medical convention. With no formal training, he was immediately at ease with the technology and the type of movements required to operate the robot." End quote. After observing his son's skill, the surgeon decided to lead a study where researchers used simulators to compare the robotic surgery skills of high school students who spent a lot of time playing video games with those of the medical students who never really played any video games. The results show that video gamers had greater skill with the simulator than medical students. Okay, so there are probably still some people thinking that this was an educational game. The one we're worried about is the ones with extreme violence. For those of you that have ever been to a GameStop or any retail store of any kind and saw the little letters at the bottom right or left of a game's cover art, that's called the game's rating. Founded in 1994, the ESRB is the company responsible for those ratings. Ratings are set into 7 categories: EC for early childhood, E for everyone, T for teen, M for mature, AO for adults only, and RP for rating pending, meaning the games don't have a rating yet and they're in the process of being rated. Do you believe that this rating system is efficient in the terms of the way they rate games, or should they update their policies?
I really don't know that much about it.
I'm not very familiar with the ratings, but
yeah, because you see, I mean, in our generation, because we're 65, you know, our children or the generation after us didn't have these video games. So we've learned this through grandchildren. But we don't really know that much about it.
no.
So really not really...
I'm not very familiar with the rating they have, but they should have some kind of rating, some kind of control.
Yeah.
They have to have more detail because maybe they can know what it is, the person that's doing, that person that's which is the child that's reading it and rating it. Most parents don't know what that is. Like me as a parent, you just told me what that those ratings, a question with that ratings, and I don't know what you're talking about. So actually, they need to explain more so the parents could be more aware of what they're doing and what's going on.
Most retailers don't even carry the adults-only games because games with this kind of rating contain very brutal and realistic violence, like in the game Manhunt, or too much sexual content. These games also contain real-life gambling simulators. Hold on to that thought. That players can spend real money on. Most retailers don't sell these games, and as a result, games with the adult-only rating don't sell very well, so they're not really being produced. So the highest retail rating that you're going to see in most stores is M for mature. This is where we have our Mortal Kombats, Call of Duties, and Grand Theft Autos. Most people are concerned that the violence in Mortal Kombat is way too realistic. Although I don't really see how slicing your opponent in half with a spear counts as realistic. But regardless, there is still a lot of controversy around the Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty franchises. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 contains a level titled No Russian. In it, the player controls an undercover CIA agent who participates in a mass shooting at a Moscow airport to gain the trust of a Russian terrorist group. Do you think games containing this kind of content should be left to the choice of the consumer to be purchased or just be outright banned?
That's a very big influence to a person that has a mind of a criminal mind.
Yeah.
A criminal mind, they can use that to do bad things, and a person that's normal is good. I mean, it has no problem. So
They know it's a game.
it's a game. So it's almost like a gun. The gun doesn't kill. It's the person that is behind the gun, And if it got the person behind the gun is responsible, well, he's not gonna kill, but if he has a mental issue, then you got a problem. It's the same thing with all these games. It's just like the games are just like a gun.
To the consumer, because it whatever enters your home, it's what's going to be introduced and educated.
Especially around Call of Duty, and parents are worried that increased exposure to this kind of content is encouraging violent acts in our youth. A study conducted by Medium shows that since the year of 1998, there has been a steady increase of video game sales and titles sold. In comparison, a study conducted for the article "The US Murder Rate is Up but Still Far Below Its 1980 Peak." The study shows that since the year of 1980, murders have been steadily decreasing, and in the time span of 1991 to 2016, violent crimes as a whole have been reduced by nearly 30%, rape by 30%, robbery by 62%, and assault by 42%. All these statistics depicting the decrease in violent crimes is important to point out because various news outlets and the media are concerned that the popularization and wide availability of violent video games is causing an increase in crimes committed, when the statistics just contradict that claim. So, would you say that you believe violent acts in our society today, such as school shootings, are caused solely because of violence in video games?
I don't. Solely because of
People are saying, oh, this happened because
of video games.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe that.
I think it's up to the person. If he's mature enough, he can handle it. Maybe it's okay, but I don't think that would cause somebody to go kill somebody. But it depends on the person.
Not exactly partial as it is. Sometimes children don't have that access and they see it at home. So they use that same strategy to have that kind of violence.
With all that in mind, it's reasonable to believe that violence in video games is not going to be disappearing anytime soon in the foreseeable future. And there are already measures to ensure that games with violent and mature content aren't meant to be purchased or distributed to children. See the ESRB rating system. But what about when that system fails? Now, don't worry about seeing a game about Dora put you in the pits of the underworld asking you to go slay demons in bloody fashion. That's not going to happen. But there are bigger problems that need to be addressed. Going back to the adults only rating, the ESRB determines that an AO rated game can contain prolonged scenes of intense violence, graphic sexual content, and or gambling with real currency. Seems reasonable, right? We don't want our children being exposed to sexual content and real life gambling at such a young age, but they are already being exposed to real life gambling, and we're just not aware to it. The rating E for everyone is given to games that may contain more cartoon, fantasy, or mild violence, mild language, and or minimal suggestive themes. But the sports games in our current generation are basically glorified gambling simulators with sports games attached to them. And with the ESRB rating slapped on the cover art of these games, parents who do know about the ESRB rating systems are going to still expose their children to gambling simulators. A lot of people put the blame to games for the violence that they may encourage, but it's just a matter of the person playing the game, not the material in the game itself. And children are more likely to develop a gambling addiction by being exposed to these kinds of games rather than going out and performing a real-life fatality on someone on the street. Parents just need to be more aware of what they're bringing into their homes and what the games they're exposing their children to. Do you believe parents should be more aware of the content within certain games like Mortal Kombat and Grand Theft Auto, or should violent games just stop being developed?
No, I 100% believe that parents should be aware of these games and what they contain.
I agree with her. Same thing.
They should be out there. The reason I say that is because there's some children that don't know how to defend themselves, and instead of paying somebody to train them and getting hurt, sometimes it's good for them to learn how to get defend themselves in a show, in a video game, or something in that matter, but with the permission of the parent. So it's useful sometimes, so they can know how to defend themselves. Yet, if they're going to use it as being a bully or being mean or use it as a wrong way, that's not right. So it depends on the child, what psychologically way he's thinking or how is he reacting.
Even if your little Timmy is exposed to the violence of Mortal Kombat or the realistic war setting of Call of Duty, as long as we the adults teach them what is right and wrong, what is reality and fiction, we don't have to worry about games affecting our children, because games aren't a babysitter. They're meant to be a form of entertainment, and that's just it. Entertainment. At the end of the day, tragedies are always going to happen, and people are always going to get hurt, and something is always going to get blamed. But as long as we know how to treat the certain material with the respect it deserves, we don't have to worry about our children ending up being corrupted by these games. And to the people who still have such a big concern for violence in video games, be the adult, be the parent. It's your duty to tell your child, this isn't how we treat people in the real world. This isn't how you do things in real life. Even if for some reason you can't do that, then just be more aware of what games you're exposing your children to. Because it's like the famous saying once said, sometimes it's just a wolf in sheep's clothing. Excuse me, ma'am. What are your thoughts on video game violence and the impact it has on our society today? Thank you for your time. Sir, what are your thoughts on video game violence and the impact it has on our society today? Thank you for your time, sir.